everyone, it's Allison here, also known as Lasan Faye, and I'm here today with another Zen Doodle with me video, this time for February 19th through the 25th. Again, just as a reminder, these videos are for the Zen tangles that are part of the Zen Art Challenge hosted by Heather with Mindful Creativity, and I'll include a link to the Facebook group below. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in. All right, so this first tangle is called Aqua Nocturne A, and it is by Heidi Denny, and I'll include a link to the origin below. But it kind of makes me think of seaweed. So the way to get started is you start at the base and create slightly curvy line going up, and once you have that initial line, you come in and do a little teardrop shape to form a leaf on one side, and similarly you form a leaf on the other side, and you continue to do this all the way up. And once you get to the top there, you can continue this by drawing another curved line and repeating the same thing, doing the little teardrop leaf shapes. You can add as many of these as you want in and around the background, and then the tangle description actually fills in any of the empty space with ink. I'm not going to do that here just because I want to save a little bit of time. This is just mostly to test the shapes versus incorporating it into a full piece of artwork. And also I don't have the nice boundary lines that the example on the right hand side provides. But without any further ado, I'm just gonna go on to the next one. The second tangle today is called Croissant, and it is by Yu Chen, who we've seen several times in this month. And so again, I'll link the source down below. So to start Croissant, you find the center dot in your space. And this one is usually done in squares. And if you were to do this on a larger scale, you could make yourself a square grid first. But as I'm only going to do just the one square, I'm not going to worry about the square grid. So I place my center dot, and then from there you start in one of the corners. You come up towards the dot, kind of curving as you get towards the top, and then outside of the dot, come back down towards the side where you started from, and do a nice little spiral. And going now to the opposite corner, you repeat the motions of coming towards the center dot and then curving as you go out back towards the original side and creating a spiral. So that forms the base of this tangle. And then from this curve right here, so if I were to go from my original line that I drew in towards the curve, I'd go to the first curve that I have and draw a line that's kind of tangent to it, going out back towards the corner that you started from. And similarly, repeat this process on the other side. All right, so now we have those lines. And from here, we now echo the curves that are seen in the spiral by making curves that go into our little vanishing corners. And you similarly do this on the other side as well. And just like that, we're done. And for this one, I'm going to make it a little more interesting and fill some of these blank spaces in. And with that, I am done with the second tangle. I just decided to color in every other stripe, just for fun, to make it look a little bit cooler. But, you know, you could change it up, color it in however you want, or not color it in, as the case may be. But yeah, I think that's part of the fun of this, is being able to fill things in how you wish. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. The third pattern that I have for you today is called Croissant, and it was made by Moon Attic. So the way you start this one off, I don't know if you did what I did in elementary school, but to like make the sun in a large picture, you just kind of went into one of the corners of the page and drew a little partial circle. That's kind of how we're going to start this one off. And then put another one that follows it close by. Then do a third one slightly further away. And one more that is close to that third line that you drew. So that creates the initial steps for the Croissant. And from here, we're going to do flower petals, which can be gained by doing a U shape. And because we like borders on this one, do another U shape right around it. And a U shape going off the side here. And one coming off over here as well. So now you can kind of start to see the flower effect of it. And from here, we add some embellishments. So the first set of embellishments is these little scallops, which you create by doing little humps, going out and back down, again and again and again. adding the outside embellishment, we can do some embellishment on the inside. And the original artist did some straight lines going out. I want to see how this looks with diagonal lines. All right, the fourth tangle that I have for you today is called Kunsan, and it is also by Yuru Chen. And this one is more in a straight line, and it's probably one I'd use more on borders of what I'm working with versus doing it in the middle. But at the same time, if you want to fill up a whole space with this tangle, go right ahead. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm actually going to do this on the diagonal so I get the most out of it. So you start with straight line, you can come up, curve, and replicate that curve on the other side. And from where you started your curve, come back down to create space around your initial line. And from where your line went into the antenna-like shapes, just add a little heart. And from your heart, you can then extend it out with another line that you add your antennas to. And drop down and add your heart. And continue this as long as you like. Alright, I ended with a heart there, just for some finality on it. And then come back and go slightly out from where you start and where your lines are, and trace around your whole shape. And just like that, we've now finished this one up. And this one, you can add little embellishments as well by doing little lines and the hearts, adding some sparkles, just whatever you feel like doing. So I'm going to call that done. And go ahead and move on to the next tangle. Okay, this next tangle is called Struzzle by Joe Newsham. And this is one of the few tangles where I will actually use pencil. And so I'm going to come in and draw some guidelines for myself. I'm going to neaten that one up. Not as happy with it. This is why I usually don't use pencil, because I will erase and erase and erase all day. Alright, so now I have my base work for Struzzle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a pen, and about halfway along each of these lines, I'm kind of going to mentally flip a coin in my head to decide which side I put a C on. Okay, because for those of you looking at the directions on the left, the guidelines are to help form where our puzzle pieces are. So I'm now going back and I'm tracing over where the pencil is, with the exception of where there should be a break, because that's where the puzzle piece changes. And for those of you who want to erase any pencil stray marks, I suggest you wait until your pen has dried, or like any ink that you put down has dried, before you start erasing, just to make sure you don't smudge anything. I know I'm in a habit of rushing it a bit, so just wait a little bit of time. Okay, so I've now waited about a minute, and I'm going to go back in and erase my pencil lines. And my general advice is to wait about a minute, even with stuff that says things like light fast, which mine do. Just so you know, I use the Staedtler pigment liners, and they do in fact say light fast on them, but sometimes, you know, ink takes longer to dry than you expect just because of the paper quality. Other inks I have used for Zen tangling are the Pigma Micron pens, and I'd probably wait about the same amount of time for them as well. Even though, like, these, I don't think actually say light fast on them. But, you know, waiting about a minute is a good amount of time. And if you're really nervous about it, erase a small sample first, just to see if it smudges at all, and then go through and hard erase everything. But now I have my puzzle pieces, and the next step is to create the image on the puzzle. And that was done by randomly adding circles. So you guys now get to see my attempt at drawing a circle in multiple ways. And where else do I want to put a circle? How about here? And so a fun way to color this in, and this is a method I have used before and I really enjoy it, is to alternate back and forth which piece you're shading in based upon the pieces around it. So for example, if I shade in this piece here, I don't shade in here or here, but I do shade in right in here. And you kind of just alternate as you go around. am done with this tangle. And I really like this shading effect just because you get to see the shapes kind of in the absence of the shape, which is one of my favorite ways to do shapes. So, but yeah, I love this. And yeah, I hope your own is one that you love as well. Okay, the sixth tangle that I have for you today is called by Casey. This one's also by Yuri Chen. So the way to get started on this one is by centering a little circle for yourself. This one a little bit larger than some of the circles we've drawn, a lot smaller than the ones I was just previously drawing. But once you have your circle, from the circle, kind of draw tangent lines coming out and that loop back in. So kind of reminiscent to some of the stuff that we've been doing previously. So coming out and looping back in. And doing, I don't know, a couple of these as you go around. Okay, so once those are in place, you can come through and just slightly below the loop, what you're going to want to do is follow the loop out and around and come up. And I'm going to go ahead and do that on the next one as well. And why I'm doing that will make sense here in just a second. Because what I'm going to do now is come back in from here and go up to that point. That's just the way I find it easier to do it. The directions do give different arrows, and I don't know, experiment with it, find what you find easiest, and just go for it. And you just do that all the way around, and once you have that completed, you can kind of fill this in however you want. I am going to do little lines right along where they meet up, just to kind of give it a fake shadow effect. Because I think this looks like a lot of like tangled up paper or a knot that's been put together. But yeah, so you can emphasize whatever you want in regards to this tangle and make yourself happy with the end result. And you know what? I'm extremely happy with my end result today. So I'm going to declare myself finished with this tangle and have every intention of using it in future work. And we have now reached the final tangle for today. And I do not know the name of this tangle, and my source is unable to tell me the name of the tangle. So if you happen to know the name of it, I would appreciate it. If you look off to the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a couple of examples of this tangle, and I'm going to emulate the first one. But hopefully my directions, you'll be able to abstract them enough to do the other shapes if that's what you decide you want to do. And this is a tangle that I'm going to do entirely in pen, but if you feel more comfortable doing some guiding lines in pencil, please feel free to do so. In fact, I might recommend it. So without any further ado, I'm going to dive on in and start by making these parentheses, because it's a parenthesis shape on the sides. And so it's kind of like shoelaces, almost, how it comes in. And I am going to come in from going from left to right, starting at the top and going all the way across, going about, say, half a centimeter in, about half a centimeter. And then a little bit down from that, have a matching parallel line. And accordingly, have one that comes up to the other side. Okay, so now that I have a few in place, just to kind of give you an idea for what I would do next is I will come back in, and so I know that this forms one line and this forms one line, and so in the space that's not forming either of those lines, I can draw a curve that mirrors the parenthesis. And similarly, I can repeat this on the other side. And so, as you see with this one, this cross wound up being much more right side dominated versus left side dominated, whereas the top one wound up being more centered. And honestly, I don't mind that. It makes me think of my actual shoelaces, where I don't get all the crisscrosses centered down the shoe. And finally, as a little bit of detail, I am going to use lines in order to shade my spaces in. And voila! Just like that, I'm done with this tangle, and I'm excited to do other similar things like it. And I hope when you do your own version of this, you're just as excited. All right, so that is it for this week's tangles. I hope you all enjoyed them. And yes, I know I skipped a box here. That's mostly because when I set up this page, this row wasn't quite a square, and I thought that this tangle would fit better in a rectangular shape versus a square shape. So that's why that is set up that way. But anyways, I really hope that you enjoyed the tangles for today, and I hope you found my little tidbits that I provided on them useful and helpful to you. And I hope that you have a wonderful and amazing week. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and if you would like to see more, please subscribe. And thank you again. I will see you next week. Bye.